Okay, let's get going. Can you all hear me okay? Tony, Rich, Bas, can you all hear me good?
Clear.
Great. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Rust Cryptography Interest Group Sync-up call. My name's Ernest, I'm going to be your host. This is our third Sync-up call, and we're all really happy to have you here. So this is an opening address just to give some context for people who are here for the first time and to explain what the Rust Cryptography Interest Group Sync-up calls are about. This call serves as a forum and a roundtable for Rust developers interested in cryptography. The purpose of this call is to foster a dialogue within the Rust cryptography the Rust cryptography ecosystem. This isn't about showcasing your individual projects. This is about us coming together as a community to explore the current Rust cryptography landscape, diagnose what's needed, and to kind of do some blue sky thinking to figure out how we can help each other for the greater group, for the greater good of this subset of the Rust community. So that's the focus and the core purpose of these calls. The Rust Cryptography Interest Group is facilitated by the DevX initiative and brought to you by Concordium. We're really grateful to Concordium for helping facilitate this. This is a way for them to connect themselves into the Rust ecosystem through the DevX initiative and to be able to help foster cooperation and coordination in cryptography through these kind of community events. If you want to check out more about the DevX initiative and what it's about, please follow us on Twitter and also follow Concordium on their Twitter account and check them out as well. They also have a grants initiative which they've launched as well. So if you're looking for grants and funding to build on the Concordium platform, they've actually just launched that, so you can check that out as well. If you go to their website, they'll have that information there for you. The Rust Cryptography Interest Group is a collaborative effort between Rust Crypto org and COBRA, as well as our new partners, Akamai as well. So we're really proud to make this a collaborative effort. It's not just about the specific individuals, but this is a coordination between many different parties who all care about crypto in Rust and want to see it do well and want to see it be a vibrant, robust part of the Rust ecosystem. So please follow these individuals. They will be acting as our co-hosts. Tony Arcieri, who everyone knows from Rust Crypto org, and also his amazing Twitter account. We have Rich Salz from Akamai as well. He's going to be here with us representing Akamai, as well as his general interest in crypto as well. And we have Bas Spitters from COBRA, Concordium's Blockchain Research Institute. So they will all be my co-hosts today and will be helping facilitate some of the conversation. The Rust Crypto Interest Group, these calls follow the Berlin Code of Conduct. So all of that means is just, simple, decent human being stuff when we are talking with each other, when we're having our roundtable. It's just about respecting each other and making sure that there is robust debate, there is robust discourse, but in a considerate and in a very respectful manner. So these are our code and conduct and tenets. If anyone feels that there are any issues, please feel free to message the DevX initiative Twitter account, and we will take up any issues that you do have. The way that things will work on this call is that we will try to make this as frictionless as possible when it comes to sharing and speaking up. So that's why I asked everyone to switch off their video and keep themselves muted for the initial point. the way you'll signal to speak is to switch on your video, and that will indicate that you will want to speak. And if you want to make a follow-up point, you can also keep your video on. That will indicate to me that you want to continue making a point. It's something that I'm borrowing as an etiquette from Nico Matsakis and the cross-team collaboration fun times call as well. So we're trying that out. We are open to suggestions in how we can make, Zoom calls less awkward and less unwieldy. This has worked pretty well so far, so we're going to keep going with that. If you don't have a camera, you can use the hand raising tool within Zoom itself, and me and the co-host will be on the lookout for that, and then we will loop you in as and when we can. So it will be a combination of using your video to indicate that you want to speak, and the actual hand raising tool, but the precedence will be for people who come on video and indicate that they want to speak through that. Right, so today's agenda. You just had my opening address. I will give a very quick TLDR recap on the last call that we had, just for those who are here for the first time. Also, it will be good to kind of make sure that people understand where we've come from so far in our last two previous calls. Then I'll lead into an opening question, which will form the topic for this meeting. One thing that we're starting to evolve into is making things less general and actually homing in on things that can get done, things that can actually lead on to actionables and things like that. So today's agenda is going to focus on the question around what should be on the awesome Rust cryptography list. I'll get into kind of opening up around that, and then we will then open the floor for your remarks, for your points, and we can really get into a good open discourse and discussion around that. Then I'll make some very quick closing remarks, and then we'll kind of hopefully lead that on to the next call, which will be scheduled at a later date. We're really excited to have you all here, and I'm really excited for some of the things that will come out from this. So thank you again all for being here. This call is being recorded. Video will be uploaded to YouTube, the DevX Initiative YouTube. So please search for DevX Initiative on YouTube as well, to find the video or to share it with those who weren't able to be here but would be interested in this as well. So we're now going to get into a quick recap of the last call, and that mainly centered on the collaborative effort that we had with the folks from formal verification side of Rust. It was styled as a combined sync-up call where we wanted to kind of discuss and share some of the overlaps with Rust crypto and the Rust formal verification space that's also emerging as well. That's now going to be turned into a formal interest group as well. So there will be a Rust formal verification interest group for those of you who will be interested in that. And that's going to be headed up by Xavier Dennis. I will be helping with that as well as part of the DevX initiative to continue hosting and facilitating the conversation. But my aim, as always, is to, as I've said before, is to just ask the questions and get out of the way and let all of you folks really open up and discuss the really important things that need to be tackled. So be on the lookout for the Rust formal verification interest group, and we'll be having similar calls like this where you can come along and discuss things around formal methods, the standardization of Rust, and how that thread is going as well. So that was the core of the last call. We had some really good insights on things being done in the formal verification space. The video is available on YouTube. So again, if you go to the DevX Initiative YouTube, you can watch that video as well and catch up on all the things that were said on that call. Great. Now, so I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to go into the actual list. Bear with me one moment. An awesome Rust crypto. Awesome Rust crypto. Okay. So there is a markdown document that was merged into the Rust Cryptography Interest Group's coordination repo, which I invite you all to be a part of. That's where things are being tracked. That's where issues are being opened. And that's where, you know, we're starting to formulate a lot of things that need to get done. So if you want to be added to that, please message again at DevX Initiative on Twitter, and you will see you'll see a reply from myself, and I'll add you to the coordination repo so that you can also be a part of opening up issues and everything else. I'm just trying to find the list, which I had in a tab right here. So please bear with me one moment.
There should be a link to it in the chat too.
Yes. Oh, there's a link to it in the chat. Okay, great. Thank you, Tony. Because I've got like a million tabs open as you do, right? Okay, I will just jump to that here. Great. Right, so I'm going to share my screen. And right, for, again, those of you who may be new to Rust even, and maybe new to the community, there's like a precedence for having websites that act as a compendium of all the different resources available in the community. So there are things like, are we async yet? Are we game dev yet? Awesome Rust mentors. These websites serve as a focal point for people who are getting started with the language to go to and see a breakdown of different tools and different repositories, different projects within the community for that specific domain. One of the big things that came out from our first call is that we need one of these, or we need a toolbox for cryptography in Rust. There are a lot of different things that are needed within this specific domain, but what a lot of people coming into the community need is they need to know where they can get started. They need to know what's available to them to get bootstrapped and started within the language. And you know, I had a very positive conversation with Rich about this and Tony. We opened up about that on the call, and we also had specific conversations between us about this. And we talked a lot about the fundamentals. You know, there are some things we'll get into that could be quite an interesting part of this conversation based on what's dominating cryptography in Rust at the moment, i.e. blockchain. But there is also a very strong need for there to be a holistic focus. You know, that's one of the things that we identified as a possible pitfall, is that we need there to be a solid foundation first. And it's great that so much stuff is being done from the blockchain space, from projects building in blockchain and what they're adding to the Rust ecosystem. One team in particular is Zcash, who have been, you know, the vanguard of all of this, really, with their Rust crypto repo. But we also want to have again a very holistic view of, you know, the fundamentals. So I wanted to bring in Rich and ask him to kind of open up on those points as well, as to what he feels is needed on the fundamental level. And then I'll start going through this list, and then we can talk some more about those categories.
Okay, sure. I'm well aware that I'm coming relatively late to the game in terms of Rust and Rust cryptography. And so I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I admire that a hell of a lot has been done. And I recognize that this is sort of early days. But I think I bring a perspective that's a little different from what most of the contributions have been so far, which is I work for Akamai. You might have heard about us yesterday because we goofed and broke many of our customers for an hour. But we're kind of typical, I think, of some larger organizations that are mostly interested in memory safety and concerns. After Heartbleed, we made the corporate decision to go all in on OpenSSL. And now that's starting to show its creaks and the limits of what can be done, I think, with a C, even a C++ API. So I'm looking for things. I don't want to say, I don't think we should repeat, the OpenSSL API. That's huge and not really there, not really good. Let's put it that way. We have a chance, I think, to redo a lot of things. But some of the basic facilities that my company needs, right, are, CMS, key management with the classic PKCS series. I know that there are Acme protocol implementations out there, which help. But looking for a lot of the cryptography stuff, if you look on the list that Tony repurposed and curated, a lot of it is really cutting edge stuff. And I just want to put in a word to, when I think DJB used the term and Adam Langley, boring crypto. We need some of that because it's not the most exciting or interesting or cutting edge stuff. But we have systems that we use and we'd like to make them safer. So I guess that's the way to put it. Understanding, of course, that he who writes the code or she who writes the code wins. And I intend to, put my fingers where my mouth is on some of this stuff.
No, that's great. That's great to hear. And again, boring crypto is actually, some of the important stuff that you need on the ground. Tony, did you want to come in on that and add to that? Because I remember one of the things that you said was the mandate for Rust crypto itself was, the boring foundational stuff as well. It'd be great to hear from you, Tony, and then Bass as well.
Yeah. So I feel like as far as those sort of things go, for a long time there weren't nice reusable libraries for things like the PKCS standards and that kind of thing. There were a lot of ways to use them. They were kind of locked into a particular ecosystem, I think. So OpenSSL wrappers, for example, is one way to do that. There are wrappers for things like security framework and macOS. Ring kind of as this interesting, started as a fork of boring SSL, also provides that. But for a long time there weren't just a library you could go grab to do PKCS8 or something like that. So we have been working on a lot of that sort of stuff as part of the Rust Crypto project itself. So we have a PKCS8 crate, for example, and started to get a decent amount of adoption.
And Bass, do you have any thoughts on what you feel is missing foundationally from some of the Rust cryptography crate ecosystem? What you would like to see? And then I'm going to open it up to everyone to come in.
So just a quick plug for a paper that was released on the archive.
Oh, here we go.
Last week, it just shows that we've all been doing great work to use Rust. So 30% of the vulnerabilities in cryptographic libraries are due to memory safety issues. So I think we can all applaud that we now have a paper actually doing an analysis that this kind of work is actually important. Then Diego's on holiday currently, so he couldn't be here. So I'll be mostly talking about the formal verification or the high assurance aspects. So I think the list that we currently have gives a very nice list of challenges of things that we can hope to do in the coming years in either synthesizing using tools like fiat crypto or maybe use Evercrypt. I see the noise protocol on that list. There's a very nice noise explorer that's used by Concordium in production that actually gives a symbolic analysis of the protocol, which can be automatically generated and then has a backend to Evercrypt. So that could also be a very nice connection. What Rich mentioned, as a reaction to Heartbleed, there's the big Everest project that I think would be very nice to get also to target Rust. And there's a lot of that work that we can, a lot of that research agenda we can that really fits very nicely with Rust. And then we can hope to have a lot of the things on the list to have formally specified, maybe using Hexpack. I think those are the main points.
Thank you very much for that, Bas. So now I want to open it up to everyone else. Again, it would be great to hear your thoughts and feelings on what you feel is missing foundationally from the Rust Crate ecosystem. It's not, I mean, of course, it's going to come from your personal need first, because as much as we want this to be cooperative and open sharing, of course, it's going to be, you know, it's going to come from that initially. So please also bear in mind, like, that's something that we really want to focus on. So of course, let it come from that place, but also keep in mind what else you would want to see for the benefit of the entire ecosystem. So anybody who wants to switch on their camera, that would and make some points on what they feel is missing foundationally from the Rust ecosystem, please make a point. Again, things that you're frustrated with, things that you may have heard have been moaned about at Hacks or any of the other conferences. It would be great to hear your thoughts and feelings on that before we get into some of the specifics on the list. So we want to look at tackling some of the foundational parts first. I'm just going to keep scanning through to see if anyone switches on their camera. Hey, Michael, great to have you. And a big thank you for authoring kind of like the beta version of this list. So thank you for that, Michael. And it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. So this is like a subtle point, but one of the bigger issues I find myself running into in the Rust ecosystem, I think in general, and maybe more so in the cryptography ecosystem, is it's hard to know what dependencies are being used. So this, I guess, is like two parts, right? Especially with versioning. So first of all, like I remember like banging my head against the keyboard for like an hour before I realized that the digest crate for the thing that I was using was one version behind the digest crate that my crate was pulling in, right? So it was like 0.8 versus 0.9. And it says that like cha-cha-20 isn't a hash, or cha-cha-20 isn't a digest. It's like, it obviously is, right? But it's not a digest according to this other version. So this is not exactly a crypto problem, but a larger problem of like, how do we all decide to like move our crates in lockstep? I think that this is a broader question that is
absolutely
unsolved right now.
Yeah.
And also another broader question that's unsolved right now is that you have crates that move faster than even releases go. So for example, ArcWorks, just like ArcWorks is moving very quickly, right? It changes kind of by the week sometimes. And as someone who uses it on a daily basis, I'm intimately familiar with the changes. I know that I have to rewrite all my Merkle code right now. But it would be cool to have that, instead of having to just rely on using Git to pull in the head branch, to have more granular versions, I guess, or more fine-grained versions whenever changes happen, and just being able to not, have to pull in the head of the Git repository or a pin on a particular commit because they've actually been burned even by pulling in the head on a Git repo because it changes again very quickly. So these are like broader issues.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that, Michael. Armando, great to have you. Thank you.
Hello, this is Armando.
Hi.
Something that I think would be useful to have or to think about it is that for one algorithm, we could have different implementation, right? Of course, we would like to have one single code that works for everyone, and that's fine, right? But I think one another requirement is that having a certain way that we can define only, for example, the trait, which only defines, like the high level, very, very, very high level semantic of the function, and anyone will be able to do its own implementation of that for very different reasons, not only because security, but I can think of different people has different opinions on how cryptographic code can be done, right? Or different optimization targets. So I think something that can be used as a starting point is try to define traits or certain API, and before to get into the on the details of the implementation. I don't know what others think about this.
No, that's a very interesting point. Very interesting idea as well. I wanted to come back to Michael's point on kind of like crate deprecation and trying to keep things in lockstep. And even with the point you've just made, Armando, about like varying implementations, how do we kind of reconcile those two? Because you want to have some sort of consistency, and you want, I mean, variety is nice, but also you want kind of like consistency in versioning and knowing where things are so that things aren't too disparate and like pulling in different directions. So how do you feel that we could reconcile, the variety with also making sure that things are kind of like organized and formed in a way that isn't too confusing and overwhelming for people?
Yeah, well, I think, for example, that the trait system is something that works well. So let's say, for example, define the trait for signature, which is generic enough to support, let's say, RSA signatures, let's say elliptic curve signatures, or I don't know, maybe other type of signatures. But this should be like abstracted in a way that doesn't matter which algorithm is behind or which implementation is behind that in order to work. So I think the trait system is something that can work in order to unify all this.
Any of you guys? Oh, sorry.
Another question is whether we want to start this from zero or we want to bring all the code that is already there and try to unify them, or I don't know. So this is another question.
Yeah. So I dropped some links in the chat. So there are a few Rust crypto crates that do that. There's one called Signature that has the traits. There's another one called ed25519. It's kind of a more concrete example. But that's used by the ed25519 DOLLIC library. So that's where it gets its definition of the signature type for ed25519, and it's using those traits as well.
Right. Yeah. So does anyone have any more thoughts on that? Again, how to reconcile those 2 points. Thank you very much, Armando, for those points. Rich, Bass, any kind of thoughts around that?
No, I put in the chat that, I think as we go through the document, just saying this thing uses those, and not to repeat the cargo file, but I think that could be worthwhile just to give people a heads up.
Right. No,
Yeah,
makes
but
sense.
no, I think that it's also, like I said at the beginning, I understand it's early days, and so there's going to be a lot of flurry around, and it's probably maybe a bit early to settle on standards, but maybe the trait system is flexible enough that we can do one and then drop support for some traits as things evolve.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. And that's even got me thinking, like, going onto the list now. So looking through the list and looking through the headers on the list, it's like the point that was made right at the beginning is that, like, hey, we're doing all the cool, sexy, fun stuff, shiny, new, bleeding edge stuff. Like, what sort of a header would we need for, like, boring crypto? So if we were to, is that already there? Is this already on the list in some way? Or do we want to carve out a section and call it boring crypto as a first priority? What do you guys think of that? What does anyone else think about that? And what boring crypto are we missing? So first, let's tackle, like, having a specific header section for boring crypto, and then, like, trying to identify what we mean by, like, the missing components of boring crypto that would really help this ecosystem flourish.
Yeah, so to me, like, the original, like, impetus of boring crypto is kind of came out through, like, Adam Langley and DJB and people like that, was like this idea of hard to misuse crypto. So crypto that just tries to eliminate and sand off all those sharp edges, right, and just be something that's, like, easy to use, high level, kind of more forgiving of user errors and that kind of thing. So to a certain extent, I think that's, like, what that high level library is trying to highlight there. As far as what's missing, one thing I thought of was Google Tink. So Google has been trying to build this, like, high level library to kind of become, like, Google's new internal high level crypto library, kind of for user app facing concerns, right? So there is an attempt to implement kind of the specs, all the protocols and formats and algorithms that Tink uses in Rust, that's coming out of Project Oak. So I think that'd be a good one to add to the high-level libraries. Maybe we could call that boring crypto.
Yeah, I think that's great. Cool. Sorry, Armando, I saw you come on screen. Did you want to chime in?
Yeah, so I just want to say that, well, I didn't know that boring crypto, the origin of the term, but right now, if you ask many people what boring crypto is, it's like a product of Google. And yeah, that's all. I don't know if this is the right term we want to follow. Well,
yeah. So we've identified Tink. And that's one of the components of boring crypto that we're looking at. Oh, sorry, Rich, did you want to come in and say something?
So I was going to say, I totally agree with Tony about Tink.
Yes.
It's safer than libsodium. It doesn't expose things like nonces and stuff that could cause, what was the phrase Peter Gutman said? RC4 back in the 90s. This is possible with libsodium. The other thing I was going to say is a couple people are commenting in the chat about TLS. Is that in scope? I think everyone is assuming it is, but maybe we need to make that explicit. And therefore, well, what do you need to do TLS? Well, probably need a good generic ASN1 library, sadly.
I think if you scroll down a little bit, it's under that collections of cryptographic primitives, there is Russell's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's not quite the best place for it, but yeah, that would probably be the go-to choice for TLS and Rust. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it sufficient? Does it meet the needs though right now? Like, even getting a bit meta, what are the holes in that that need to be plugged in?
I mean, the main, sorry, you want to go ahead, Rich? Sorry.
I was just going to say, so ISRG, the folks who founded Let's Encrypt, are paying with Google to have that put into Apache and curl. So I think as that's done as prototypes, they'll be a good source for finding out what's missing in some serious real world applications.
I'd say the main thing Russell's doesn't have is TLS 1.1 support, but fortunately, I think that doesn't matter much anymore. So.
Yeah, that's in 2 years it'll be dead anyway. So
okay, that's because I was going to ask why is that? You know, it'd be important to kind of know why.
Yeah, they wanted it to be modern. They didn't want the old junk in there. So.
Yeah, and the payment card industry has said you have to phase out 10111. I think the U.S. government has said don't do 10111, and the browsers are pushing hard to drop it. So.
And you know what? That's even brought me onto a very interesting thought. Where do we draw the line? You know, what you've just kind of described there feels like a drawing of the line. Like, look, we don't have to be like backwards compatible with all of this stuff, but we also need to be able to identify like what is junk that we just need to clear out and where we draw the line and can kind of move forward to our shiny new future, you know? So I think more around that conversation in terms of picking out foundational crypto, so that we don't fall into the trap of legacy. You know, of course we have to consider it and everything else, but we don't want to fall into that as a trap, right? So it'd be great to kind of hear more points on that from anybody else. Michael, Armando, anybody else is welcome to chime in on what they feel would be a good way to first identify where we draw the line on certain things within this list. I'm sure some of it will come out through actual hands-on investigation, but is there stuff that is just like redundant that we just don't need to really bother with? Michael, did you want to?
Yeah, I think fortunately this is probably not a choice that we have to make right now.
Yeah.
This list encapsulates almost everything that I know about the Rust ecosystem and more, right? I don't know of anything old out. Well, I don't know of any specifically algorithms that are part of crates which are well maintained, but the algorithms themselves are old and busted, right? The only example that I personally don't know of is the SM2, SM3. These are China's encryption standards.
Okay.
I've never heard of these algorithms before.
Right. Yeah, I
that
saw
would be
that.
the. But again, I haven't looked into it. But thankfully, I don't think that's a thing that we need to choose. There are few enough libraries out there and enough focus on modern stuff that we don't have to decide that some things are simply not worth including here.
Okay. So we that will be something that will come up through the course of this journey, you feel, right?
I think so, and anyone else can disagree. This is just my perception of the current ecosystem.
Any other perspective or thoughts on that? If you also do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. If you just feel like you don't want to come on camera, you don't want to raise your hand at all, I will scan through the chat and pick out those questions and ask them on your behalf. So please feel free to do that. If you feel like you just don't want to come on camera, you don't want to raise your hand at all. So yeah, I'll keep scanning in the chat for questions that are written in the end. Okay, so those were really good points. Dimitri, great to have you. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you. Yes.
Many thanks for sharing the invitation. I have some basic thoughts about the cryptography in a high-level language, which Rust is relatively to the favorite C language.
Yes.
we can, when we use cryptography, we can follow the very different goals. We can require the fastest implementation. We can require the safest implementation. We can require the certified implementation. The presence of low-level crypto primitives is good, but for most people, we need something high-level. And these high-level things, such as just connect to TLS using this certificate and this protocol, should be simple and provide all the necessary security.
Yes.
I don't understand what can be done in the sense of various certification, such as FIPS certification. So
yes,
it's a question I would like to get an answer. If it's possible. Thanks.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you. And I think you raised a very, very good point about simplicity and simplification and cut through. How do we cut through and make things as high level and simple as possible? If I wanted to ask you to just repeat the question that you want asked again, my apologies for that. I just wanted to really get that clear so that we can have that out there. So the specific question that you have.
The specific question I have is what can be done to make any Rust crypto? Well, I think that for the safety, we need to have a pure Rust crypto. The question number one is it will the pure Rust crypto will be fast enough?
Great.
And the second question is the pure Rust crypto FIPS certifiable?
Okay, great. So
Thanks.
we'll start with the first question. Is pure Rust crypto going to be fast enough? And this is a very interesting question because Diego has actually done some experiments and he's got some data on that specifically. So hopefully when he comes back from vacation, we can really probe him on that question as well. But what does everyone think? We'll start with Tony and then Bass. I'm sure Bass wants to come in. Okay, so yeah, Bass.
I can just shortly comment on the experiments that we've done with Diego.
Okay, yeah, of course, because you worked with Diego, yes.
Yep. So it looks like the generated codes that we have, for instance, for the field inversion, there we can generate something that's fast enough, that's competitive, and it looks like we know that there are a number of other issues, and we have some goals, some ideas on how to address those. So it certainly seems like there are parts where it can be fast enough and it can be verified. To what extent it scales, that's something we need to figure out.
Okay, so that's the second part of the question as well, it being FIPS certified. Like, I know that that's an area that you're very much focused on as well, Bass. You have all the confidence that that's the case, right? Or am I just assuming that?
We don't see the obstacles yet. That doesn't mean that there aren't any. But to the extent that we've done the experiments, they look good, and we're close to generating an implementation for PLS, which is both completely pure and verified.
Okay, right. No, that's great to hear. I just wanted to give a shout out to Strad, Nicholas, who has come into the room. I hope he forgives me for slightly shoving him in the back on stage. But it's really important to acknowledge the Zcash team who have done so much for Rust Crypto instead, as well as others. I wanted to see if they're interested in jumping in, and just a very quick TLDR on what's been discussed so far. The big focus is on figuring out what should be on an awesome Rust Crypto website. What we discussed in the first call about having a toolbox for people to know where to go to get themselves started. We've had some excellent points about implementation diversity over crate deprecation, and not over, but like in as well as. Those are two areas that we're really trying to find a reconciliation for. And we've also had some very good points just now regarding what can we do to make things simpler, and are things, are Rust crates FIPS certifiable. We're going to continue with the time that we have left. So if Strad, if you do want to jump in and give a perspective from Zcash, who have been, you know, long-standing vanguard of Rust Crypto, please feel free to jump in. Just jump in with switch on your camera, and then give your perspective on what you feel is missing and what you would like to see on this list. So yeah, that would be great to have your input from there as well. Coming back to where we are, does anyone else have any points on simplification? Tony and Rich?
So I did want to talk about both those issues of performance and FIPS verification. So just as a general observation of the Rust Crypto project, most of our implementations like run a little bit slower than, say, like either like idealized C implementation or like especially like ASM. So I mean, so there are like a couple different reasons for that. Some of it is just like purely algorithmic, that like a lot of these really nice C libraries are, you know, very mature. They've spent a lot of time doing these like algorithmic optimizations that just take time and effort to implement. So there's a certain amount of catch up there to be done. For example, Rust Crypto has a SecP256K1 library that we continue to kind of chip away at and make faster. We just shipped an optimization that makes ECDSA verification about 20% faster. So that's cool, but you know, getting performance parity with C or assembly is just something that I think is going to take time. What I do really like though is Rust has this cool thing called std-symd and std-arch. So std-symd is trying to make portable SIMD primitives that can work across architectures. So that would let you write a single SIMD implementation, and then you don't have to write like separate architecture specific backends, or at least you can share a lot of your SIMD code that way. Fortunately, it's still unstable, still a work in progress, but it's something I'm really excited about. In the meantime, there's std-arch, which is kind of a much lower level API for CPU specific intrinsics. So we use that pretty heavily in Rust Crypto right now. So that's great. That's like the closest thing that lets you get to something like an assembly implementation. And for stuff like our AES GCM implementation, for example, we were actually able to match the ideal assembly on Intel for that. So it's an evolving area, it's exciting, it's just gonna be a lot of work to kind of reach performance parity. Regarding FIPS, like FIPS is a very complicated and involved topic. And there's questions of FIPS certifying libraries versus FIPS certifying like entire device, like an HSM. I think for FIPS, like people who are really interested in it are gonna probably need to fork some of these libraries and make like FIPS versions of those libraries, because FIPS has this very involved and prolonged certification process where every single code change needs to go through and get recertified. So I think if people are very specifically interested in something like FIPS, they should almost go make their own little working group to do like FIPS certified crypto in Rust.
Oh, Tony, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they've changed. I mean, you can patch and then get an update later, but we can, it might be, I agree, it would probably be worth having a split off or a focused call on the FIPS stuff for those who want to need it without slowing down the general crypto progress. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good. But just that, even as a quick question, where would the FIPS certification stuff come in on a list like this? Where would that be its own category, just like we're saying? Would it be its own header, or would it nestle in somewhere?
Hard to say. I think there's some decisions that need to be made. I don't know yet. I might make some suggestions later on, but
that's all good. Yeah, that's also an answer. Yeah,
sure.
Cool. Tony, did you want to come in on that and also carry?
I mean, I was basically done. So
yeah. Okay, that's all good. Okay, cool. So we've kind of really looked at exhausting a lot of what we talked about fundamentally. What we want to see boring was crypto. I still think there's more to be explored around that, because there'll be things that come up, and feel free to open up an issue in the coordination repo if you come off the call and then you have a eureka moment and you want to add something to the conversation. Please feel free to open up an issue in the coordination repo. If you're not yet a member of the coordination repo, please remember to message at DevX Initiative, and then I'll add with your GitHub handle, and then you'll be added to that coordination repo. And then again, you'll be able to open up an issue, and then we can actually kind of table that for the next section. I'm looking at time, and we're nearly at time, like hours is gone. And I think this will actually be an ongoing thread of conversation for the next sync-up calls. I think what you said, Rich, about even having a specific call just for FIPS makes a lot of sense. And it would be great to hear from people what we should tackle next in regards to this awesome Rust cryptography list. In our next sync-up call, this is going to be multiple parts, like what would we want to see discussed about like this list next? We may have to take it in sections and chunks. So yeah, if we want to hand it to the co-hosts, and then also anyone else, especially Michael, who helped curate this list as well, can also chime in as well. So what do we want to talk about? Like, what do we want to tackle next on this list? So we know that we need a boring Rust crypto section more fully formed out, possibly strongly titled boring Rust crypto, right? What do we want to then go on to from boring cryptography? Tony, do you want to start, or you good with that?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good to me. I mean, just like something that's come up on several calls and just talking to people is, I think just in general, like Rust developers are confused about which libraries fall into that category. Like as an app developer, as somebody who doesn't really know a lot about cryptography, which of these libraries should I be reaching to, and which ones are like too low level that I should be avoiding, that kind of thing.
Great, yeah. I'll just hand off to Michael, and then Rich, and then Bas.
Yeah, so separately from the high level, low level distinction, I don't know how I would write it, but I feel like all of the Rust crypto things should be grouped together, because like they are a constellation of things which are, which, I mean, maybe I'm biased here. I feel like they represent a strong direction in Rust cryptography. And if anyone asked me, like, I need a particular, signature algorithm and it was supported by Rust crypto signatures, I would say just use Rust crypto signatures, because that is kept, I know for sure that that's kept up to date, and it uses standard traits that are available across like multiple other libraries.
Right.
That might be a biased choice in the list, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point as well about, deprecation. I think that came down back to your point about like the disparity that you've experienced in crates, being kept up and being maintained. I mean, maintenance is probably one of the biggest issues across open source software, right? So I think maybe in that list, we can incorporate some aspect of, maintenance as well. I know that's something that's an ongoing topic in open source software, but we can also have that in mind for this as well.
Yeah, to be clear, I in making the list, I pruned everything that didn't have an update in like the last year. Anything with that's even a year old is just gone. So that's the bar that is currently set.
Yeah, and that could be like our Occam's razor, we can kind of work something out like that. Yeah. So just to hand off to Rich and then Bas.
I think Michael made a really important point, which is avoiding too much fragmentation. We're all, we're on the start of big things here, and I'll emphasize, I agree with him about avoiding fragmentation. On the other hand, I know that, FIPS gets a lot of, we have to do it, and almost as many eye rolls. So I don't want to hijack any threads.
Great. Bas, you want to have the last word on this topic before I close up?
I don't think I have anything to add at the moment.
No. Okay, great. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who attended. A big thank you to everyone who contributed and shared their thoughts and ideas. This is going to be a long one. It's going to be a work in progress for us all. And we're going to probably, I think this is going to be turned into a series of sync-up calls for us to kind of get through things. We'll aim on each call to pick out things that are kind of tangible to me, be sort of doables, but this will be something that we'll definitely have to come back to and continue to work on as a community, as a group together. So again, I really want to thank you all for attending. And again, thank you to those who contributed to the discourse. So many great insights. The recording will be up on the DevX Initiative YouTube channel. Again, if something comes to you post-call that you want to add, please message at DevX Initiative with your GitHub handle, and you'll be added to the coordination repo, and you can add your points, open up an issue, open up, any kind of comment that you want to make, and then we can kind of collate that and continue to bring these things to the table where we can hash it out. Again, a big thank you, and really looking forward to continuing this discourse with you all. Please, all of you, enjoy your weekend and continue to stay safe, and look out for the next series, next call in this series. We'll have that up soon. We aim to have these the third Friday of every month, and we're going to be playing around with times to try and accommodate as many time zones as possible. Please bear with us. Sometimes we may have to switch times around, but we're trying to get as many time regions in there as possible. So again, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Bas, for being my co-host. And we'll see you all on the next one. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Ernest, for all your work.
Thank you. Thank you.